Here we are, happy campers week. Look at that. We are happy campers. We don't put we at the end. We don't leave out our word. Let's read. Were you able to get in and register? Yeah. Well, there is a thing called prejudice. They come after a verb, right? After a Lincoln verb, where you go, he is late. Late is a predicate adjective. Richard Nixon is late, and the late Richard Nixon means two different things. And then I think sometimes artistically people will throw an adjective after them. Did you see one? Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, let's see. Yeah. Interesting. That's kind of weird. Yeah. I've looked at that sentence a million times, never thought much about it. Well, we figured out at least one place where they could do it. Yeah. Huh. Unless, was that one of the exercises for today? That's really cool. For all the times I've been saying you're going to have either a noun or an adjective, and now we got both. And what's really kind of interesting is she makes she's actually having the adjective on the word phrase, not on the noun phrase. She makes it interesting. It probably makes sense, but it doesn't fit very well with her phrase structure rule. It does not. Man. Well, good. It would have thrown me off if I ever sat there and thought much about it. Like, oh, yeah, it makes perfectly good sense. Well, you remember I said in front of you, 99% of our get into the Spanish lady trying to tell me auto maintenance. Hello. Well, thank you. You at least called me in English. I've been getting this one in Spanish over and over and over. Oh, you do? Yeah. I got some. Although I don't know no Chinese, because although she was talking about farming. But I guess you're just paying too close attention. Oh man, we've got a sparse today. The weather isn't good. I mean, Monday I could see, or Tuesday I could see why people wouldn't show up. They call it spring. Oh, well, we'll hold on a couple minutes. If you guys can jump on the homework. Hello. How are you? Well, I'm good. All right, we've made it into the double digits, and sin Isabel's here. We can start. All right. So anyway, here's kind of we're going to continue. We're kind of wrap up for the most part syntax today, and the homework is going to be. Remember, I gave you that one thing last Tuesday in email, or I think I sent it on Monday, and I said just do the first part, 6.2. So do the second part just for. Okay. Good. Somebody's got to drink. Might as well be. Okay. Read chapter 3, page 26 to 39. That's the semantics chapter. We're going to be launching into that on Tuesday. You're free to read the whole chapter. There's a back part of that that I really don't think we'll cover on things like presupposition and entailment. Has to do with truth and various things. We're kind of more interested in the meaning side of semantics. So 26 through 39 should cover us for that. And you remember that we're going to have part 3 of the project due a week from today. And it's going to be on syntax, word order typically, or word choice, perhaps morphological errors that have grammatical impact. And any questions on from what we talked about? Anything come up after we talked about it? You thought about it a little? No? Yes. What would that one word sentence be? Are you talking in English or Spanish? Oh, it's Spanish. You wouldn't have to state the pronoun. But in English, you can do. What's the one word sentence in English? I can count that high. Didn't even need my thumb. You think of one? No. Well, what you can do is imperative sentences. Imperatives are essentially command statements. And so you can have a perfectly good one like eat. My father used to say that all the time. Or you could go, or sleep, or something like that, or get, right, or go. All of those would be one word sentences. But if I said that a sentence has to have a subject and a verb, how could one word be work? Why is that? Why is go a sentence? So you got a thought? It's because in an imperative, the subject is assumed to be you. Or you never, you very seldom say, you go. You wouldn't say that, I would just say go. Or eat your peas. Well, there we go, 3. When you get to be parents, you eat your peas, and but you never say you eat your peas. So yes, we can in English have a one-word sentence if it's an imperative. It'll have the verb and an assumed. Now, does that answer your question? Is that what you were getting at, or no? Or just kind of okay? Yeah, in English, there's not a whole lot of conjugation going on except for third person singular, right? And so in the present tense, so sleeps. We don't know whether it's he, she, it, Joe, John, or Sally. So we don't necessarily get to it. And even in Spanish, you have context. Okay, so here we go. We are gonna do these for that for next Tuesday. So I think there's only 4 sentences on that bottom chart, and it'll be looking at coordination. We've looked at the phrase structure rules a lot. They keep coming up when you're looking at your trees and how to do the trees. They come up over and over again. Does this noun phrase go here? Does this go there? And with some of the ambiguous sentences we saw, as Isabel pointed out to me the other day, a lot of those ambiguous sentences seem to have a prepositional phrase that makes it ambiguous. Is it applying to the direct object, or is it applying to the verb? And so a lot of them are like that. But when we get in and look at this, the ones we have for Tuesday, we're going to see it's not just prepositional phrases, but conjunctions frequently do it as well. And we'll see at least one example of that today. But don't forget, have a good feel for these. As I've said so many times, don't try to memorize them. Understand them. And if you understand them and you look at it, then you're going to be able to easily recall what it should look like, and you can make those changes quickly. If you try to memorize them, they're meaningless. They're just a bunch of letters. So, something for all your students forever. Don't tell them to memorize unless it's something that can only be memorized, like irregular past participles or something. There's no rule there, but here we've got nice, clean rules that you can understand and apply. Okay. So we are going to jump in there and start talking about some goofy goldfish at a party, as I recall. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to draw those on the board like we did before. Maybe I'll get you guys to help me draw them. Good piece of chalk. And let's see. The first one. Super easy, right? We went to a party. Anybody here hate parties? Good. Me and you. We're philosophically aligned. There are very few things in life I hate worse than a party. But anyway, Chris, no, Cynthia. Oh, Electro Lady. Walk us through it. Okay. Cool. All right.
Went to
No, you're saying that just in the way that probably makes it easiest, instead of just saying, okay, I'm gonna add went on there. No, I'm gonna make the verb phrase went to a party, right? Very good. So you're breaking it and you're building it as you go. Makes it a little clearer as you're thinking your way through it. And then all done? Okay. Wonderful. That is exactly the way it goes. Let's see. Anybody else hate parties? Do you hate parties? Oh, yeah. Even if I know them, I tend not to like them. But anyway, yes, particularly then. Therefore, you're going to tell us all about the party was fun. Thinking about the last time you went someplace where you didn't know anybody. Yeah. Yeah. I think we talked about this one. This kind of could be a noun or it could be an adjective, but we'll go with noun because I like nouns. Okay, I hope you out. Now you take the rest of the way.
And then, well, the party.
So you want to jump over here? Okay.
And then fun is numbers.
Okay.
And was is a verb phrase.
Which was a verb phrase?
Or was fun.
There you go.
And then next to noun phrase.
Yep. Now, if this was an A and this was an adjective phrase, would that be wrong? No. It could be either way. I think the book probably calls it an adjective phrase. Yeah, they do. But I was thinking the party was fun. He was president. President would be a noun, so that could fit there as a noun also. But we'll go with adjective. And in this case, if it were to show up on the test, either one would have to be right. All right. The next one is my friend swallowed a goldfish. Does anyone have a friend who might mistakenly swallow a goldfish? How about a friend who would purposefully do it just to freak you out? You got one? Got one in mind? Good. There we go. So you're going to give us this one.
Okay, so it's going to be now. Sorry, mine.
I'm sorry?
Mine isn't here now.
No? Remember? Okay, cool. So we're going to go in here and we're going to say my is a determiner. I know you want to call it a pronoun, and you may have even had people tell you it's a pronoun, but if you think about it, a pronoun replaces a noun phrase. And my is incomplete. It is not replacing a noun phrase, right? So, okay, so we'll call it a determiner. Where do you want to start? Great. Swallowed all by itself? Okay, very good. So everybody got those? Looking right? Now, places where I see people get confused is sometimes trying to tie this noun phrase directly to the verb phrase, or the verb phrase directly to the noun phrase. Or even worse, that isn't me. Okay, even worse is doing something like that, because we can't cross lines. The big thing to think about here, though, is what you want to remember is every sentence is going to have a noun phrase, even if it's eat and it's assumed you. But generally speaking, we're going to have a noun phrase and a verb phrase. So start there and remember those two are going to come together in that sequence as a sentence. Okay? Okay. All right. I'm depending on you to stop me when I confuse you. So a lot of this, these pieces have already been here, right? Wait a minute, can we do this? Yeah, we'll just do it here. The friend, not my friend, but the friend, this friend, sorry. This friend swallowed the goldfish at the fun party. Run out of smart alecky questions to use. So Lorraine, how are we going to do this? Okay, this. Yes, it is. That's true. Yep. Yep. Nope. Nope. Think of that mountain. It's on the mountain. It's in the mountain. It's by the mountain. It's at the mountain. Huh? Yep. Yep. In this case, we know it is because it's coming in front of a noun, right?
Parties of the
The party? The party.
and then finally put
Yeah, that's good. What did you do then?
what's in the
Oh, connected. So there we go, right? So you can't leave something unconnected. It's got to go somewhere. Great. Okay. Okay. I'm right about there. Okay, perhaps we do that. If we did that, what are we doing? We're taking at the fun party and the goldfish. What's the relationship there? Very good. So we could do it that way. We could definitely do it this way. If that's the way we're thinking, we're going, it's just so happens that the goldfish was invited to the party as well, right? So we're talking about, in this case, we're saying the goldfish happened to be at the party. Right. Okay, you can do that way. While we're sitting here, though, is there another way to think of that? Yeah, so we've got a choice here to make. And so you've chosen a perfectly valid interpretation of that. Now the question is, it could be that he swallowed the goldfish while he, the swallower, was at the party. A little bit, slightly different meaning, but both, it seems like both the goldfish and the swallower were at the party. So we're going to go in here, we're going to do something like this. We're going to go, it could be like this, the way Lorraine said. It could be this way, depending on how you looked at it. If you did it on the test, if we had something that looked like the test, I'd have to go with either one, because both of them could be true. Okay, so we're going to go with that. Just keep that idea in mind. We've kind of got two places this would work. And then continuing on.
this friend is the one.
Yep. We do this, right? Is it that way or is it like this? Huh? Mountain, okay. What are we gonna label it? Sounds right. Okay. Everything seems to fit in there, right? And as we said, there would be two perfectly good interpretations of the goldfish at the party. Not that there'd be a heck of a lot of difference in the meaning, but in a different context, it could be very different. Yes. Everybody catch that? First mistake since 1962, but here it is. We also got to go in there and grab that, or it's either, let's see, in either case, it's going to connect to the noun phrase. So thank you for catching that. And the verb phrase or the noun phrase could be the two options, right? So the dotted lines are kind of mutually exclusive options, but thanks for catching that, because that would have been bad. You guys can be famous. I saw Armour's first mistake since 1962 right there. Okay. My favorite sentence, not really. The goldfish wiggled in his throat. You volunteer. Okay. You what? Nope. You would think it's an adjective. It's probably best called a determiner, much like my was. Okay. When you're thinking about possessive words, they should be determiners. Yeah. Okay. It is if it works for you. Not quite, almost. What is the noun phrase actual? A little longer. Not in. There you go, because it's got the determiner and the noun. That's the only thing that's going to be in there in this sequence for a noun phrase. And then you got this P. Okay. Okay, that's where lots of people get confused, right? First off, before we move there, what are we going to do over here? We just leave those two disconnected? No, we already got the noun phrase. Yeah, where did it wiggle? Where is kind of saying, where did it wiggle? Okay, it's going to be in his throat. Now, you've got two main things. You've got a noun phrase and a verb phrase, right? What do those two things come together as? As a sentence. So that's where we want to go in here and just do the sentence there, right? That's the tricky part. But if you keep those phrase structure rules in mind, it's the very first one way up at the top. I'm going to make a sentence out of those two, just like that. And again, it's not going to be the verb phrase here and the noun phrase over here. If you think of the phrase structure rules, the verb comes before the noun, right?
Yeah, I think what I got confused in was like the preposition and that's what I got confused, but connecting it, I thought it right.
Okay. Got it. Okay, so we've got a noun phrase, we've got this prepositional phrase, and if you think of the verbs phrase structure rules, oftentimes we're going to have a prepositional phrase in there saying where it happened, right? So that's that one. All right. Oh, here. Right. So we were having discovery today. What kind of a word is frightened? It's an adjective, but what kind of a word does it come from? Frighten, which is a verb, right? And so we were talking this morning, frighten, oftentimes we'll see something come out of a verb in either the present participle ending in ing or as the past participle ending in en or ed. And they're very frequently used as adjectives, even though it started as a verb. So Selma, I know you got this one. What do we got? That's true. But we said we can't do any kind of crossing. And we've seen most of these sentences have a upfront noun phrase. So we're going to leave it like that. Now think about page 50. Think about page 50 in the verb phrase. One of the options in there is to have an adjective, not necessarily a noun. So in this particular case, we would go in here and we would do looked frightened, or looked what? Frightened. And you have an S up there, right? And it's logical to think, oh, somehow I ought to connect this with that, but you can't because we got the verb in the middle. Unless somebody decided to say it strangely and say, frightened he looked, which occasionally you'll see somebody write something like that in a novel or something, but it's kind of strange. Okay. And then, what do you do when you get something really long? You guys got that one? Let me draw it over here. We got he looked frightened. Oh, you think he was frightened? What about the poor goldfish? The very scared goldfish left from his mouth into a bowl. What do you do when they get so long? Say, I'm sorry? Into its bowl. Sorry. Thank you. And before we get there, I'm just going to tell you that's a determiner. It's just like his was. But okay. Now, how do you deal with these? They get scary after a while. We've got the very scared goldfish. How about the very scared student trying to figure out how to draw up this thing? How do you do it, Isabel? Oh, we're just going to start over there. Okay, very good. Hey, it is.
Left is the front is the piece is the continuous. Now is one. Into is a deep and roll is
So does this not frighten you? Okay, where are we going to go? Okay. Okay, very good. All right. So we got that. We're going to pick up that. We're picking up the determiner, the adjective, phrase, and the noun. That all makes sense. Great. Okay. Okay. So we're going to go prepositional phrase. Oh, wait a minute. Okay. Okay. Oh.
Connected to its whole is not. Yeah, and then I connected the noun phrase to the preposition.
Okay. So let's analyze that for a minute. Is the bold in it to its bold describing his mouth? I think it's describing where he left. So the question though, think about it this way, because this is an easy one to mess up. You get in there, you got too many prepositional phrases, and we've seen them where it's prepositional phrase to the noun phrase, another preposition, blah, 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 blah. But in this case, no, because into its bowl does not describe his mouth, right? He probably didn't have a bowl in his mouth for the fish to jump from his mouth into the bowl. So it can't go there. I think so, because it's basically describing the leap, right? It's telling us where he leapt to. What are we going to then do with from his mouth? Exactly. We're going to do them both the same way. It left. Both of those two things are describing the leap. From his mouth, it's where it started, into its bowls, talking about where it ended. So everything seems good there. And then the last part is right. Yeah. So in a half a sentence, how do you take these big long ones and work them out? You break them into pieces, you do it one step at a time. Now you started over here, which is okay. I tend not to. I usually start over there, but it makes perfectly good sense. You want to go out here and get the subject noun phrase aligned, figured out, great. And then you can go to the verb and move the rest of the way. Perfectly valid way to do it, whatever works better for you. Okay, so that one worked well, right? Nothing to it, one bite at a time. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Now, got one last one for a brave soul. Who thinks I can do this? And so we have the sympathetic party goers. Put the ball on the mantle over the fireplace. Everybody's looking down. Going, I hope he doesn't call me. Right, Lorraine? That's what they're thinking, isn't it? You got your moment out of the way early. Oh. For 100 extra imaginary points. Of course, it's only worth 100 real points, so 100 imaginary points won't change your grade a bit. But, Arpad, you look like you're ready. Okay, very good. Got it. Where do you like to start? On the right. Man after my own heart, so to speak. Okay. How do we do it? Any adjustments you want me to make ahead of time? It's not wrong. Just this one here, right? So I probably need to draw that up there, right? All right, very good. Exactly, and then this prepositional phrase still is going to go up there. Okay. Where was the bowl to start with? I'm sorry? Well, no, we're not going to go that far. We've got another situation here where we could tie on the mantle over the fireplace. Okay, well, so we want to get over to the put. Oh. You're right. This is a verb phrase like that. And then it connects with the noun phrase. What do we want to do with this? I would agree. That's where I would put it, because we could argue, hey, the bowl was already on the mantle, and so we're describing the bowl, but I think not. I think that's the way to do it. Is that what you had? Okay. Okay. So you see that from my point of view, the idea here would be that we put the bowl, what we put what? The bowl. Put where? On the mantle. Which mantle? The one over the fireplace. So this is describing this noun phrase. And this whole prepositional phrase across here that's really starts here and goes all the way is basically describing where the verb action happened, right? Good. Okay. And let's see. All right, and I think that gets us to the end of our fishing expedition. That brings us, any questions on this one? I know the ones on the test aren't going to be big, long things like that. But the way to deal with it, one, okay, I know how to do little sentences. All I got to do is put the same kinds of pieces together into a bigger sentence. And that brings us to starting to look at a few of these ambiguous sentences. We've got these in two varieties. One is the variety that Isabel noticed the other day saying, wow, we got all these prepositional phrases that can kind of make it ambiguous. And we've got another type that is going to be using conjunctions, which occasionally makes it a little weird. So I'm going to go in here. My husband hit the car with the antenna ball. There's two meanings to this. What are the two meanings? Give me one of the meanings to begin with. My husband hit the car with the antenna ball. What's the first meaning? Okay, it could be any car. And if it was any car, he must have hit it using the antenna ball, right? So we've got one way of looking at this is my husband hit the car or a car, doesn't matter, but he was using the antenna ball.
Oh, to be also the part. So my husband would put his part.
Or, well, doesn't matter. My husband hit the car. Which car? That won't tell us. Which car? Huh? No. We got the in there. Probably isn't going to be any. Well, no, you can't add that in there. A specific car. How specific? Yes. So we have one case where he used where hit is going to say this is how he hit. Right? That's what you said first. My husband hit that car using an antenna ball. The other way of doing it is to say, you know what? This is describing the car. We don't know what he hit it with, but we know that the car that got hit had an antenna ball. That's the way these things kind of work. So let's draw one of them. And let's go with using an antenna ball. Okay, so that's the first one we're going to do. We're going to do, my husband hit the car using an antenna ball, but we're still going to use the same words. So we've got D, N, V, D, N, preposition, D, adjective. Well, let's call this a compound noun. It doesn't matter. We could call it an adjective in the noun, or we could call it kind of a compound noun. I'm going to do it as a compound noun just to save us a little. This is going to be a noun phrase, prepositional phrase. Once again, right? Nothing new there. And in this case, he hit a car. Well, we know he hit the car. That's a noun phrase. Verb phrase is going to be up here. And so first off, he hit the car. Boom. And he hit it with the antenna ball, basically using the antenna ball. And then we would just have the noun phrase here, and it would be the sentence, right? Everything look okay? Everybody make sense out of that one? He hit the car, and he was using an antenna ball when he did it. Any of you remember antenna balls? Geez, how old are you? Well, okay. Back when I was a kid, antenna balls were the things we would go around collecting because all the gas stations gave them away. And we would steal them off of people's cars. And they would put them on their cars so they could find them in the parking lot before we had remote controlled gadgets that would make them beep. See, life was so much better in the old days. Anyway, I don't know when they got away with them. I'm 67, so I thought it wouldn't get anybody in here. But okay, we're in. My husband. Anybody else over 32? Don't remember antenna balls? Oh,
Sorry, I want you to.
you were just being shy. I know. Union 76 had these really great orange ones, so did Gulf Gas. Another thing we used to steal was the little black valve covers on cars. We thought we were pretty brave if we could go up and steal the little black cover off the valve on a car tire. We were easily amused. Anyway, you know this part, it didn't change. You know this part didn't change yet. And now we've got the car. Which car? The one that had an antenna ball. So suddenly now we reconnect that just a little bit to say, okay, he hit what? The car with the antenna ball. Over there is he just hit the car, obviously using an antenna bar. The only thing that's different, right? But by looking at those two, you can see that we definitely have two different meanings. Okay. Oh man, I skipped two on the fish. We aren't going back. Even I get tired of the fish. Okay. The resourceful goldfish swam happily in its bowl. My husband hit the car. Now, that's one. Okay. The other one that I want to look at really closely, that's with the microphone. Mantle. With the antenna ball. We've already done those. I thought I had one more that had an and in it. Well, I've got one that I will show you in a little bit that has an and in it. One. Am I missing one? A, B, C. Was there a D? Oh, that one won't. Oh, that's my favorite. We got to do that. This one should have you stumped. If it has you stumped, feel quite normal. Because most people aren't going to think of this. And all my grad students would sit there and they'd go, there's only one. There's only one. Nope. All right. The British left waffles on the Falkland Islands, shortened to Falkland. Noun, determiner, preposition, noun. Let's see, verb. This would be, in this case, a noun, and this would be a determiner. Okay, that's one way to do it. The other way I'm going to do it is over here. We'll come back to that one. Okay, does it make sense to you? Everybody knows what waffles are, right? We all like waffles, especially Belgian waffles. Big thick Hummers with fruit on them. So this one's pretty easy, right? So we're gonna go, that's a noun phrase and a prepositional phrase, nothing to that. Nothing new. Falkland Islands, I changed it to Falklands to be short. Falkland Islands would be a compound noun, so it'll work out the same. And then, oh, they left waffles. This has got to be a noun phrase. And are the waffles were the waffles on the Falkland Islands? I don't think so. I think they left them there. So they left the waffles. And where did they leave them? On the Falkland Islands. We've got that. Make sense? Everybody agree? Did I do anything wrong? Isabel? Ashley, did I do anything wrong? Would you tell me if I did? Okay, good. Gally would do. You just tell me right up in front of everybody. Huh. You did? Okay. What's the other possible meaning? Oh, you're too good. You're just too good. That is exactly right. The thing that we don't normally see is we could think about the British political party, which we would refer to as the British left. So in that case, I would even call this an A, call it an AP, but that's really kind of unimportant. That's the noun phrase. We're not using left as a verb anymore. Now it is a noun and a D. And now what we've got is waffles is the verb. You ever heard anybody talk about somebody waffling? What is waffling? Being indecisive. Who do you remember being indecisive? We used to have a political guy ran for president, was always called a waffler. I think it was Gore, Al Gore. But again, too old, too many years ago. But this becomes VP here. Waffles? What? What do they waffle about? And that becomes. Everybody really excited about that? If you ever want to wreck your students' day, the British left waffles on the Falkland Islands. Make them give you two meanings. Okay. That's kind of where we're at with the homework for there. There's a couple more. You'll have the key out on, it'll be out on D2L at 1:30 and be available to you. I want to talk about one more way we oftentimes will see ambiguous sentences. And those ambiguous sentences sometimes occur with conjunctions. And then we want to talk about conjunctions a little bit, but we'll use this as kind of a transition point. And we will say, he works with old men and women. Okay. Now we know that this is going to be the noun phrase, and we know that this is going to be the verb phrase. We know we've got a prepositional phrase in here, but we've also got an adjective. Yeah, that's preposition, adjective, noun, conjunction, and a noun. So what are the ways that we could think about this actually being different? And what does and have to do with it? Very good. So we've got this idea again, we've got some ambiguity here based on how is old working, right? we've got a deal here. One way of looking at this is to say, well, he is going to work with old men. So we've got this adjective here, AP, and we've got the NP up here, right? So we could say, okay, he's working with old men and women of any age, essentially, right? We don't know that they're old women. We know they're old men over here, but over here, with this conjunction in here, you're going to have something that looks kind of like that. We've got a noun phrase that is this whole thing all together. The other way of looking at it, see, did I draw that right? Yeah, probably, let's say I'm going to make it all work together. This is a better way to draw it all together. Makes it clearer. Just like that. So I've got one noun phrase, and that noun phrase is old men and women. Okay, old men and women. So this would strike me here as he's working with old men and women. Old men and women. The one I had up there before, where I broke it up into pieces, like this, would be, oh, let's see. The way to break it up the other way would be, he's got old men, and we've got another noun phrase over here, women, and we've got a noun phrase up here that joins old men and women of any age. Those are the two differences. They're a little bit different. Oftentimes you'll see that we go in there, we look at something that's got an and or an or in it, and suddenly we're not sure which way does it work. Are you talking about old men and women, or are you talking about old men and women? It happens in regular speech all the time. So, let's see. I want to ask one other question here. This is one that I didn't ever see, didn't ever notice before, and our friend Sebastian has noticed it today. Go look at B. This would have been B in the ambiguous section. My Chinese and literature instructor makes the readings fascinating. Does that sound, anything there look strange? Makes the readings fascinating. Think back to page 50. Think about a noun phrase. Where does adjectives usually come in? Well, adjectives would usually come in before the noun, right? In like the fascinating readings. But that would be a totally different meaning. Here, we've got an adjective not being attached to a noun phrase. It's attached to the what? In both cases, it's attached to the verb phrase. Does that make sense? Well, it does if you think about verb phrases, because verb phrases can be followed by either a noun phrase or an adjective phrase, right? From the rules, that's true. But there's still something a little strange here, because I told you specifically a verb phrase will be followed by possibly a noun phrase or possibly an adjective phrase. Here we have both. We've got the readings, which is clearly a noun phrase, and fascinating, which is clearly an adjective phrase. It doesn't seem to go with the rule. What I want you to remember, and this is kind of to wrap up phrase structure rules, that list of, I don't know, 7 or 8 rules will probably cover well up into the 90% of all the phrase structures that we'll see, but it isn't going to cover every single one. And here's a clear exception that, quite honestly, I never noticed until this morning. when it's pointed out to me that that's kind of strange. I'll agree, it is strange, but remember what we said early on. We'll cover high 90% of the phrase structures based on those rules, but there's still going to be some outliers or exceptions. This would have been a case of those. Okay. So he works with, who does he work with? Old men like me and women like everybody of all ages, or is it old men and women? And this happens frequently. So coordinating conjunctions, we've got a few. I think you've probably all heard of these, right? Fanboys, coordinating conjunctions, for, which is seldom used actually. We very seldom use for as a conjunction. It's normally used as a preposition. But there are cases, and sometimes you'll see it in reading where they'll use the word for. He did that for he was lonely. What's the word for actually acting like? He did that for he was lonely. Huh? I can't hear you. Because, exactly. But normally with your students, and most of us probably very seldom use for in the case of because, but it's one. The ones that we do use a lot are and, we use that all the time, or, but we use that all the time, or and so. Nor and yet are a little less frequent, but they're out there and they basically work the same way. And what these things do is they connect words or phrases or clauses or even sometimes full sentences. But they have to be of the same basic phrase category and strength. So in that, we would look at something like this. Well, I can connect two nouns. I bought eggs and bacon. Or three noun phrases, right? She bought a dress, shoes, and a purse. Notice that the thing that's being joined are these three things, and each one of them is a noun phrase. Now we can take that a little further and go, I slept and ate. What did I do? I connected slept, the verb phrase, and ate, the verb phrase. And I could put those two things together with and. Or I went to the store and bought some bread. Verb phrase, went to the store and bought some bread. Two verb phrases. Notice, what am I missing to say? So I'm saying they're two verb phrases. I'm not saying they're two sentences. What's missing? Well, if I went in here and said, I went to the store and I bought some bread, in that case, I'd actually be putting together two independent clauses. But in this case, we didn't do it that way. I could do three adjectives. Now I can also do two sentences. Jerry threw the ball, subject, verb, and he got tackled, subject, verb. It's a little bit different than this one up here where I didn't have a second subject. Not a lot. You'll see it more if you deal with in 310. You might look at that more carefully. And so if I were to come down here and say he worked in bread with B-R-E-A-D, doesn't work. I can't attach a noun phrase and a verb phrase with and. Al went home in green. That doesn't make sense. Went home, verb phrase, green, adjective phrase. Sarah was not happy nor swam. And Eric ate fish and when he got sick. So in this case, I've got Eric ate fish is a complete sentence or independent clause. When he got sick, it's a dependent clause, which again, something you'll see more later. So the idea here is we do have these coordinating conjunctions and they do have a bit of an impact on the trees that we draw. And so I'm going to just draw these up here again. We're just going to finish up. I think pretty close to this to be about the finish. Let's see. believe the sentence was, I swim or I walk or swim. I run or swim daily. Okay. So I run or swim daily. Now, I'm going to look at this as if there was just one particular meaning, but I could make an argument for two. But it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. But I'm going to go up here and say, this is my noun phrase. And my verb phrase starts right here. And I've got this conjunction. I think I'm going to draw this a little differently. I'm going to say that this is kind of like this. My verb phrase is run or swim, right? I run or swim. And I'm thinking daily probably says I either run daily or I swim daily. Every day I either run or I swim. I could stretch it and we could come up with a second meaning. It says I run, and if I don't run, I swim daily. Maybe I run once a week or I swim daily. But I think this is probably the clearest way to think about it. The next one, I bought desks and chairs. I think this one's much easier to deal with. What did I buy? Did I buy desks? Did I buy chairs? Or did I buy both? Sounds to me like I probably bought both, right? I didn't buy chairs. And I didn't buy desks. I bought desks and chairs. I kind of did something like this. Here's a noun, a conjunction, and a noun. And I would call that a noun phrase. It's the direct object of this. Something like that, right? I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I bought desks and chairs. Seems to me like the thing that I bought was a combination of desks and chairs. Does that make sense? Does this one make sense? I run or swim daily. That's if it's all one verb phrase. And let's see. Now okay, so here we got one for you guys to try with us. We're going to do this one together. This is where we're going to actually tie together a couple of sentences. And it's very similar to one we already talked about. I went to the store and I bought some eggs. Okay, would you agree those are all the parts? I went to the store and I bought some eggs. The thing that's kind of weird is I've got two verbs in here. And the reason I've got two verbs is essentially I've got two whole sentences that just got tied together with that and we do that all the time, right? So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to draw this one up first. To the store, okay. Noun phrase, prepositional phrase, verb phrase, and a noun phrase. Sentence. Nothing real magical, right? And over here, I've got basically the same thing. I've got a noun phrase. I've got a verb phrase. Oops, I've got a verb phrase. And I have a noun phrase. And essentially, if what I've been saying all along is true, I'm sitting here with a sentence there. However, with this conjunction in mind, I'm gonna come up here and say, with that conjunction, I really got what would normally be called a compound sentence. Where I've got two independent clauses or two simple sentences tied together with a conjunction. Does that make sense? I went to the store as a perfectly good sentence. So it came up to the first S, and I bought some eggs, looks perfectly good. But somehow I have to tie them together. So I basically got a super sentence over two simple sentences. Now, other people would possibly draw it differently. They call those two lowest level sentences clauses. Since we're not dealing with clauses, we're going to just call them simple sentences. Okay. I was going to let you guys do it with me. And I don't do it. Okay. Those are things that you should be able to probably draw up and be ready to put in if you see it on a test. Now, there's one last kind of topic I want to talk about. This is just going to be brief. What I want you to recognize is we had this over here. We had a verb and then to the store with a prepositional phrase added. Over here, we had a verb phrase, and we just ended it with a noun phrase. And sentences are going to be various combinations of all these phrases we've talked about, as long as we have a subject and we have a predicate. Oftentimes, though, they may look exactly the same and be slightly different, partly because different kinds of verbs have different requirements. For instance, we've got transitive verbs. If you haven't had 310 yet, or you haven't seen these things before, you will see them pretty soon. But transitive verbs have direct objects. So do these and those. Intransitive verbs don't have an object. So I slept is a perfectly good sentence, right? I slept. But if I try to say I devoured, you feel like something must be missing. Because devoured requires something extra. So here's this is called subcategorization. Again, I'm showing you this. I'm not going to make you do it on the test. But I want you to see that I have the verb put. I put is not good enough. What did you do? I put. You put what? I put the bill. Still not really good enough. I put the bill on the table. For some reason, that put verb needs not only what you put, but where you put it. Okay? If you try to do it shorter than that, it doesn't work. But if I say ate, he ate, it's perfectly fine. I don't need anything more. I could say he ate the cake if I wanted to. I could build it into the same kind of a thing here. He ate the cake and then throw an extra prepositional phrase on the end. In June, it's perfectly fine, but I could have gotten away way up here. And that's where devoured comes in. Devoured means basically the same thing as ate. What's a good word? A good adverb. Ate aggressively. Very good. Aggressively. He ate aggressively. But if I do that, I can't say he devoured. I need to say what he devoured, because this is a transitive verb all the time, and it requires something to be back here. And this happens a lot. I have another, okay. He hid. Hey, he hid. But if I said he concealed, you have to say what he concealed. I hid the truth, or he hid the truth would be fine, but he hid by itself, okay. But by the time we get to a word that's almost a synonym, it needs extra stuff there. So that was the first set of verb restrictions, right? We have verbs that syntactically require or don't require different kinds of complements afterwards, something to complete it. There's another kind of structure, though, that we need to deal with. This is our transition point kind of into semantics. When we look at verbs, they may have selectional restrictions. And selectional means it's semantic or it's wrapped around meaning. The drill press was sad. That doesn't make sense. Drill presses do not get sad. I could have said the drill press was broken and everything would be fine. But meaning wise, I can't say the drill press was sad. And I can't kill a rock. A rock is an inanimate thing. I can't kill the rock. But I could kill a fish. So you can see here, murder is another really good example. I murdered the chicken. You don't murder chickens. You may kill them, but murder tends to require that it be another person. So as you look through this, my car loves me. I wish my car loves me, but my dog tolerates me, but we'll say he loves me. My dog loves me, but my car can't. And his dinner ate the cat. Well, that doesn't make sense. His cat ate the dinner makes perfectly good sense. So as you go through there, you got to realize that verbs require specific things for meaning, as well as certain grammatical structures. Okay? Who's missing today? I got those two. One more person must be missing. Oh, her. There we go. Okay. Don't put off the part 3 until the end. If you start early, you'll know if you got questions, and then you can ask me them. How's that? Does that sound like good English? You can ask me them. No, something grammatically wrong there. But you know what? They still let me teach English, and they still pay me the big bucks. Which one? I killed the rock. Colloquial maybe, like if you hit it with a stick and you really kill it. Oh, that was Kevlar. Anyway, anyway, keep finding the exceptions. That's good. Lorraine, have a good weekend. Everybody else have a good weekend. Sorry? Yeah. Yeah.
If I say he thinks so, it makes sense. If I say he hates,
Yeah, it's slightly different, but it doesn't require anything, even though it'd be a slightly different thing. He hit himself, he concealed himself. Both of those would work, but concealed is always going to need something there. It may or may not. But you're right, it would be a slightly different meaning.
That's fine. I have a question.
Okay.
Okay, so I have questions about it. So like, when you know how to do a determinate or
Preposition.
preposition. So like, for instance, here. So for day.
About preposition. Prepositions usually tell you